Okay, welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach, leadership expert, and today I'm joined by one of my favourite dotties, the lovely Karen Ramsay Smith. So Karen is one of those people in the online space that I would probably describe as a little bit woo. Okay, and we all know that I'm not the most woo person on the planet, but Karen has an ability to kind of bring this woo into practicality and certainly into practical marketing. So she's very much about connecting with yourself and helping you to formulate your marketing message through that. So I think it's a hugely important thing now. We were just talking about this before we started recording. That ability to connect to yourself, to have that inner confidence, to bring out your own marketing message and to then go ahead and use the strategies to build your business is a hugely integral part of building a business that aligns with your own values and that is filled with integrity. So welcome to the show, obviously, and please tell everybody in the formal manner what it is that you really do.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Jess. I really, really appreciate it. So as you said, I'm Karen Ramsay Smith. I am an intuitive empowerment and visibility coach. So I help women and men to really step into the power of who they really are, which I know is a kind of common thing that people say. But for me, it's all about connecting to yourself. So connecting to that inner voice that we quite often don't always listen to because we're so busy with our businesses. Connecting to that part of yourself that really is emotionally connected to what you want to do in your business. So that part that actually connects you to your vision, your mission and your message. And because I've come from, as you said, a marketing background, I've been in marketing for 20 years plus, I use that as a mentoring tool as well as my coaching to be able to help women to really step into that mission and message to help them get clarity on their vision and to create that powerful mission and message that they can really get visible on. And visibility is a really key part of what I do as well. So with the connecting with yourself, I use mindfulness and visualization tools to be able to do that, to help people really listen to themselves. And then we work together to create the big mission, message and marketing strategy that helps you to get really visible. But without that connection part, it's really, really difficult for people to really get emotionally connected to what they're doing. And that's what I really help people to do.
And that's so interesting because for me, I mean, I've been in the online space for 3.5 years and the word authenticity has become a buzzword for many, many people, right? And I know that there are lots of people who now, when they see a post saying, I'm an authentic leader, you just kind of want to vomit a little bit because you're like, oh God, I know what's coming next. And there's going to be like either a rags to riches story or warning, vulnerable post or this, that and the other. And it's kind of become almost like a dirty word when it comes to marketing because we now assume that the people who use the word authentic are actually really inauthentic. so it's kind of been bastardized really over the last few years. But with what you do, you're not, and this is the thing that I really love about what you do, you're not teaching people to say, I'm authentic, listen to me. You're teaching them how to connect with that authentic self and then actually demonstrate it. So rather than showing up and going, I'm authentic, you're teaching them how to act authentically in the market. And as a result, people see it and react to that. And I think that's really powerful.
Well, when people use the word authentic, what they're actually saying, what lies underneath that and what they're really trying to get to is to just learn how to be yourself again. And we just forget how to be our natural selves over the course of our lives. We're conditioned to be something else that we think we should be. And because of that, we realize almost that that authenticity is missing. And I think a lot of business people realize that. So they try to get back to that. But the only real way of doing that is really by listening to yourself and really connecting back into that part of yourself that allows you to find the strength to just be yourself. It's very simple. It's really simple.
Yeah.
Being yourself actually brings out the uniqueness of the person that you really are. And that is what really connects people. That's what attracts the right people to you, the right clients, the right connections, the right collaborations, because you're just being yourself. And that's the truth, you're the true you. And nobody can take that away. Nobody can take the truth away because it's the truth.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because we always, one of the things that I'm always saying to people is that people buy from people. And obviously your personality, your character traits, the way that you show up is a big part of that. You know, it's a big part of why people follow you, or why people like you, or why people trust you. And I think the interesting thing that we see online is that there's so much competition. And so instead of looking at ourselves and saying, okay, who am I really? And how am I going to put that out there? So that even if I'm selling, because let's face it, lots of people do sales, marketing, money coaching, whatever it is, there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who are already in that niche, but they can't have the same personality, character traits, values that you do. And so it's really interesting to me when we watch people online who want to sell more, they'll go for the competition aspect and the kind of, oh, I'll copy what they're doing, or I will, you know, emulate them online. I'll have the same photo shoot, branding, whatever, rather than going, okay, what makes me unique? And I'm going to use that instead.
Absolutely. And it's part of the example that I always use is, and it's a bit of a silly example really, but it's just something to help people relate to it. So if you're a single, like say if I was single, if you were single, and you were approached by somebody like a tall, awkward guy in a cafe, and they came straight up to you and said, "You're gorgeous. I think you're beautiful. I want to marry you." You'd just be like, ugh, wouldn't you? You'd just be like completely feeling like you just wanted to go and have a shower. And that's because it doesn't feel right. Because being pushy without a connection first doesn't feel right. There's no way you're going to want to have a relationship with that person when they just lay it all out on a plate to you, because it isn't authentic. It's not real. It's not the way real life happens. 9 times out of 10, when you meet somebody, like, in a relationship, and this is all about relationship building, isn't it? At the end of the day, you want to be approached by that person or find that person in a genuine human connective way. You don't want to have somebody lay it all out on the plate. So if you think about that from a business point of view, connecting to somebody on an emotional level, you have to create that spark first. Otherwise, you're not going to want to know anything else about that person. And you do that when you're building any kind of human connection, any kind of human relationship, by creating an emotional connection with them. And you can only do that when you're actually really showing your true self. So you would only ever meet your soulmate if you were open to meeting somebody and showing your true self, because that's the way a real, genuine relationship actually happens. So, yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because I always say this to people. I went through, and I don't know whether you did this, but in my probably late teens, early 20s, I was on a mission to, find the man of my dreams, buy a house, have a child, have the fantastic career, all before I was 30. So I was like, driven, goal-oriented. And I remember lots of people saying, oh, the right person comes along when you least expect it. And I remember being really frustrated with these people because I was just like, you're idiots. Like that was just ridiculous. My life is not film. And the more I tried to be the perfect girlfriend, the worse it went. So I would end up with these absolute plonkers who were just, horrendous people. Obviously, if they're listening to the podcast, no, you were horrendous people. I can't even jazz that one up. I'm like, no, you still sucked. But, when I decided, actually, yes, I'm perfectly happy with myself and where I am in terms of my career and in terms of my life choices and things like that, that was when I started online dating again. And I remember going on to Plenty of Fish, that salubrious dating site for anyone out there. And I remember choosing my profile name, and I was like, the next Bridget Jones. And I literally wrote in my public dating profile, I was like, these are the things I really like in someone, and these are the things that I really don't want, and I was like, if you are somebody who is going to play hard to get, if you're somebody who can't cope with the fact that I'm going to wear granny pants like 90% of the time, then please don't contact me, because I'm not going to change. And I want to lay that out at the start, because those are things that I don't want to change. Can't think about my granny pants. But it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Once you're happy with who you are, it is. And it's so in that moment you must have made a decision that you were just gonna say, right, I'm just gonna be completely myself, because something told you that you're actually not going to connect to the right person
until you are just completely yourself. And until you come back to that and make that and kind of acknowledge that in yourself and give yourself permission to completely be yourself online, everywhere, offline, everything that you do in your whole business, then things will really, those connections are not really going to be as genuine as you want them to be. Exactly. And so, yeah, and it does make a huge difference. It takes you to a different place, and it makes you feel different. It makes you feel different as a business owner, doesn't it? Because you feel different.
Yeah, I think you own it much more easily. And also I think you care less about negative feedback. You know, really? I now am a bit like, oh, right, you think I'm fat. Oh, right, you think I'm boring. That's cool. Go find someone else. No worries. I think having that strong connection with self does make that a lot easier.
It totally does. And for me, one of the biggest obstacles that I have had to get over in my journey is becoming visible again, which is why I'm a visibility coach, because that's the only reason why I do it, is because that was my journey. I was so afraid of standing up in front of people, doing public speaking, doing workshops, all of these things, because something that had happened to me a long time ago, which was very small, but it affected the way I thought I was going to be perceived. And because of that, we all then start to worry about, if we have anything like that, we start to worry about judgment. And, judgment can really tear us down. It can really, judgment of ourselves, not just of ourselves, but we worry about judgment from other people, as you just said, and that strength comes back to you when you know yourself and you believe in yourself.
I absolutely believe that. And I think it brings us on really nicely to your question, actually, because that is an area where there is a lot of judgment. So tell us, ask the question for today, because I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, so I'm just really, because where I am at the stage of my business now, I've been running for almost a year. So I feel like I've gone out into a lot of different areas and a lot of places. And my word for 2018 is to be connected more, but to be able to focus on that connection. So focus down. So really, I want to know, for a spiritual entrepreneur like me, how can I leverage up to the next level? Because it's very difficult for heart-centered entrepreneurs to look at things from a sales point of view, to look at it from a real strict business point of view. So what would really help me is to understand how somebody heart-centered can actually leverage their business to the next level.
I think it's a great question. And actually, one of my favorite people on the planet, Danielle Laporte, phrases it much better than I ever could. And in her book, White Hot Truth, she says that basically we have become overly tolerant because that's what we believe compassion is. And I fully believe that heart-centered entrepreneurs have almost been manipulated by the system in a way, and that spiritual entrepreneurs have been manipulated by the system, because what we constantly put out there and what spiritual entrepreneurs say are very similar. We believe, and all heart-centered entrepreneurs, all compassionate people believe that they want to help other people. Also, though, all compassionate people generally believe in the exchange. I would call it the exchange of energy. Some people would be calling it remuneration for their services. Other people would call it being rewarded or karma. Basically, everybody who is compassionate believes that if you do good things come back to you, right? However, what we've seen in the online space specifically the coaching space, is that with spiritual entrepreneurs, they've almost been taught to give, and they've forgotten about receiving. And so the way that I look at it, in terms of a spiritual entrepreneur having to be a business person, quotation marks, right? It's not about putting the business head on and forgetting about the compassion. It's reminding yourself that in return or in exchange for the talent that you have and the help that you are giving, you deserve to be rewarded as well. And also for the other person, because I know this is a big thing in the kind of what I call the woo community, for them to get out of the help that you're giving, the full amount, they have to give something in exchange, because otherwise energetically it doesn't align. And so what ends up happening is you give them loads, but they're not invested in some way. So the commitment level is low, and then they don't actually end up achieving what they wanted to achieve in the first place. So I don't think it's about how can spiritual entrepreneurs focus more, how can we become more business-like? Because ultimately, everyone runs their business in their own way. It's about going and understanding sales is service. And ultimately, in order for somebody to get everything that they need from me, they need to be invested, they need to be committed, and that means that there needs to be a fair exchange energetically, and that there's some form of currency behind that. So whether that's money, whether it's, some people barter services, that kind of thing, it doesn't make any difference. It just means that there needs to be that fair exchange. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And I think, completely on the sales being a service thing, but also the commitment thing really reads true to me, because I can feel that when somebody isn't fully committed into either the coaching or the mentoring side of my business. I feel it, because obviously lots of intuitive people actually feel that anyway. So I guess some tips around helping people. What's the best way to help people to commit, I guess, in terms of committing to, I suppose, the longevity of the program, and also to being a loyal client as well, which is often, the issue that we do one thing and then it doesn't continue for whatever reason.
I think there are a couple of things. So Russell Brunson, in his book Expert Secrets, he always says people who pay attention. And so I am a financial person. I firmly believe that in exchange for, the skills that I have, I deserve to be remunerated financially. And it's one of those things that's just the currency I operate in. For people who find that actually their clients or their prospective clients, they like free, but they don't like to have that exchange of currency, I always say, you've got to appeal to two things. One, they have to trust in you, and they have to trust in your ability to get them where they need to be, which means that you have to be confident enough as any kind of entrepreneur, but probably most as a spiritual entrepreneur, because there are so many just scams going around where people are like, oh, I'm psychic, or I'm this, or I'm that, and they're actually not. You have to give them that confidence in you, that you have the skills that you say you have, and that you are confident that those skills can help them. The second thing is about self-belief. Most people do not believe that they can achieve the results that you are promising, not because of you, but because of them and because of their commitment levels. So we have to give them almost like an easy win. And that's why when you're an entrepreneur, it's so good to give an easy win in the form of an easily digestible opt-in. Because when you give somebody a 3,000-page ebook as an opt-in, 9 times out of 10 they don't read it. So it's a waste of time you writing it, and it's a waste of time them downloading it because they never do anything. Whereas when you give them something that's easily actionable, like, I don't know, a 5-minute meditation audio to do every morning or something, you give them that quick win, because for 3 or 4 days, they will actually be able to do it consistently. And so in having that easy win, it gives them that ability to go, oh yeah, actually, if it's all this simple, which obviously it's not always going to be that simple, but if it is that simple, I can manage this. And so you win their commitment level in stages. So first with the opt-in, then you go through to the discovery call, and you lay out, what is their problem, show them the breakthrough that they need to have. And again, you get that next commitment. Oh, okay, I'm here for the discovery call. Now I know the transformation I need to have. And then it comes to the financial commitment. Am I ready to invest in this change or transformation? Yes or no? And ultimately by that point, most people are, because they've demonstrated the small yeses along the way that give them those quick wins and momentum to get them to the next stage.
No, that's really helpful. And also, because one of the things that I would really like to do is do a webinar, for example, that might be something that's evergreen, that was so as you were saying about the opt-in, having like the meditation, I'd really like to do something that includes a visualization, because I feel that is, well, I know that is one of the most powerful things that I offer. And so what do you think about things like that, just in terms of, the spiritual side? How does that fit in with having that clear kind of funnel through to having those discovery calls? What would you recommend for for that kind of sequence?
So I think it's interesting because everybody's funnel will be different. And the thing that I see online that really drives me crazy is that everyone tries to do the same basic funnel. So everyone's like, oh, I'm going to do free plus shipping for a book, and then it's going to be an upsell to this or that, or a webinar to this or that. Really, with what your funnel looks like, if you want to do something like a visualization on a webinar that's going to be evergreen, you need it to be interactive. So for me, I would probably take the webinar and divide it into 3 parts and have the first bit as right, this is the part where we set the goal. And you give them like a visualization for, I don't know, what they want to achieve by the end of the webinar, for example. And so you get them into that space. So you're showing them your skill, but you're not necessarily taking them further than they can go. So all you're saying is, look, I want you to visualize where you are at the end of the webinar. And that is that you've taken in the information, that you're ready and clear on how to make the next decision that you need to make. And then, you might have the next piece after the visualization is, okay, so now you've visualized it. These are the types of actions that you need to put into place. And again, keep it interactive so that they can write down the answers, or they can write down the plan. And that shows them the structure of what they're going to go through with you. So it's very different to other webinars, where other webinars are very much about educate them and just throw information. This is more about you educating them, but in an interactive way, so that they're the ones actually doing the work. And then at the end of the webinar, you would put them into, depending on what you're going to be selling, discovery calls, or you would give them a program link or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And actually that works so well, because it's actually what I would normally do with my clients on the first call. So it is almost the first step for me naturally anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Being able to bring that into something that's a little bit more structured, that allows me a little bit more time, I suppose.
Exactly.
To be able to offer it out to a larger amount of people, and helps me then to not have those constant calls in, which is what I'm struggling with at the moment, is trying to fit everybody in into my day and trying to be mindful and look after myself and not get overwhelmed, and do my self-care and all the rest of the things that spiritual entrepreneurs have to do. So having things like that is really, really helpful for someone like me, because it gives me that time to look after myself and do what I need to do to be able to be the person that I am, which is the most important thing to me.
and that's the thing, and there are other benefits to it. Obviously, that way when people approach you and say, hey, can I have a call? You can go, have you been through the webinar first? Because ultimately that's the first step to talking to me, because once you've been through that, you'll know if I'm for you and if I'm the right fit. And also you can drop in the traditional like webinar structures of, you do the visualization piece and then you give a testimonial from somebody who you've worked with who really had great success with visualization, and then you do the planning piece and you give a testimonial from somebody who's achieved that. And so effectively you're walking them through it in an interactive way, but also you're showing them this does work. Here are other people who've had the breakthrough. Here is their experience. This could be you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that that everybody has concerns with is money mindset. Is your mindset around money? And I think this is another big one, isn't it, for spiritual entrepreneurs that want to go up to that next level, that want to be able to much more than just the basic salary, so I'm making so much, but now I want to go to the next level. What advice would you give to a spiritual entrepreneur, just in terms of starting to think about money in a different way? Because I think often we do think about money in a different way to somebody who has a business mindset.
I think it's a really interesting one. I recorded an episode a few months ago about why spiritual entrepreneurs deserve to get paid, because this is a really prevalent issue. And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the exchange of energy and spiritual entrepreneurs being manipulated in the industry to give and never receive. And I think that spiritual entrepreneurs specifically, when it comes to pricing, you do need to first off look at that energetic exchange. How much am I prepared to give before I receive? And actually, how much is a fair exchange for that? And reframing the old, I need to just give and help people Because as we discussed, you can help people you like, but if they're not committed to the process, if they're not invested in the process, they're not going to make use of it. And that eventually makes you feel resentful, because then what happens, regardless of how nice anyone is, we don't like being taken advantage of. And ultimately that can get to that point, right?
Totally.
So the next thing that you need to be thinking about is, I price based on transformation. So I don't price by the hour. I don't believe in it. I work in a service-based industry, and it doesn't make sense to me to try and put a price on an hour of my time. Comes back to that story about the plumber, right? He goes into the house, there's a big flood, he taps on the wall, the water stops. And the woman says, how much is it? And he says, that's $500. And she's like, what? You tapped a wall? And he says, you're not paying me for the tapping of the wall. You're paying me for knowing where to tap. Spiritual entrepreneurs need to remember that. I can't see how your brain does what it does. I can't understand how, psychics can, use their brain or their gift to tell the future. I can't understand how mediums can connect with people who are dead, right? To put it really bluntly. But just because I can't see it, it doesn't mean that gift or that speciality doesn't exist. And so that's what, when people are paying a spiritual entrepreneur, that's what they're paying for you to do. Not to hit the wall with a hammer, but to know how to connect with that, all I can say is strange part, that mystical part, that does something differently to our brain. And so I think that's what we have to remember. And again, then the third thing is, it does come back to that selling being of service. And I think that when we talk about heart-centered, when we talk about compassionate, when we talk about spiritual, the consensus is that those things come for free. And especially prevalent in women who are taught to nurture other people, who are taught to put other people before themselves, who are taught to be maternal and loving and all those kinds of things. But actually, you have to reframe that as, if I don't sell, I don't make money. And it means that I can't share my gifts with the wider world. And ultimately, that means that whilst one person may not buy and they lose out, thousands more would lose out if I wasn't selling daily.
Oh, completely. And also, I think knowing that when you have the income that you want, you can do more.
Yeah.
You can do more and you can reach more people. As you said, it is that ripple effect, which I think a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs do want to be able to give back, give back and leave their legacy in the world, and you can do that. And I think if you can hold that vision, that is a good reason to ask and receive what you need.
And this is the thing, I was brought up in a Catholic household, and one of the things that my mum always used to say to me whenever I was looking at starting a new job or asking for a pay rise or a promotion was, even Jesus asked for help.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the big thing. And it's like, even Jesus got free food in return for his gifts. Even Jesus got, housed and all these kinds of things. Yeah, okay, he's a carpenter too. But the majority of people coming to him for working miracles and doing all this kind of stuff. So when I kind of look at it that way, and I hear people and they come to me and they say, oh, I can't sell because it wouldn't be spiritual to sell. Actually, that's not true. It's not about spirituality and business being two different things. Running a heart-centered business is understanding that in order to make the biggest impact on the world, you also have to be okay with welcoming wealth into your life. And if you're not, that's your own money mindset. And in all honesty, it's your way of self-sabotaging yourself and doing your audience a massive disservice. Because if you're not prepared to make an impact on the world with the gift that you have, then you have to question very seriously, am I exercising this in the best way? Am I going to leave the legacy that I really want to leave?
And part of that is, as you just said, asking for help.
Yeah.
You've got to ask for the help, haven't you? And that's, partly why I've come on this podcast today, is because it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and say, well, you don't know, I don't know everything just because I can connect to the universe, and it doesn't mean you know everything. You need help. You need help with your business, and you need help to go to that next level, as you said.
And that's the thing, asking for the sale, it's kind of repeatedly asking to be able to make an impact to someone's life. And that's really all it is. It's a conversation that empowers them to say, yes, I'm ready to make the change, or that empowers them to say, no, I'm not. And that's fine. But all you're asking for really, outside of I need to pay my mortgage and XYZ, is it okay with you if we exchange some form of currency in order for me to make the biggest impact on your life that I can? And when you put it like that, I mean, seriously, who doesn't want to say yes? Like, that's
exactly. I mean, if you think about the amount of money that we spend on, well, I don't personally, but some people might spend on a cup of coffee every single day, or, when you think about the things that we spend on ourselves that don't really do anything for ourselves, and probably sometimes actually don't do very good things for ourselves. But, like the bottles of wine that perhaps we buy or whatever. Well. I'm not saying I don't have a bottle of wine, because I definitely do. But when we sort of weigh that up against the transformation that working with a spiritual entrepreneur can bring, it's worth, you weigh that up, the cost of what we spend a lot on ourselves and what that transformation could bring. That's what you're bringing to that person and that person's life, and that's what brings the ripple effect.
Yeah, and that is huge. I mean, I think people forget that when we're actually talking about transformation, and when we talk about, because people come to me and they say, oh, Jess, it must be really easy to sell because you help people make money and everyone wants money. Well, actually, people really, they're not that bothered about money. They're bothered about what money brings. Freedom, more time to spend with their family, to be able to go to the gym, to improve their health, to have a car that allows them to travel, all these kinds of things. The money itself is kind of irrelevant. It's the vision of what the money would bring to them. And so when I say to people, actually, people are just as invested in their health or their business or their life or their relationship for those exact reasons. People don't want the perfect boyfriend, but they do want the life partner that they're going to grow old with, that is going to be there for them, that's going to provide companionship and support and all that kind of thing. And so I think we need to, as salespeople, look at the wider benefits.
Completely. And there's a real connection there between, as you said, it is exactly the same thing, business and selling and coaching, whatever that coaching is, because it's exactly the same thing. We all want the same thing, don't we? We all want the same thing. We all want to just be happy at the end of the day.
And that's the thing.
Yeah. It's just part of having money. It's part of having the right relationship, being yourself, feeling happy in your business and your life. So yeah, it's all connected. Back to connection again.
And that's what they say, isn't it? Money doesn't make you happy, but it can do a hell of a lot to get you there. And absolutely. I think that's the thing. Ultimately, the biggest disservice that I could see for spiritual entrepreneurs is about self-worth. And I see that a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs are so desperate to show that they are not tainted by money, that actually they reject it in all forms, and then they start attaching their self-worth to the money that they're not earning. And as a result, things spiral downwards from there. So, if you are a spiritual entrepreneur, you've got to accept that giving and receiving are both equal parts of running a spiritually based business. And if you can't accept that, it's not about what other people are doing. It's not about the judgment that other people are making about you. It's what you believe. And it's about the value that you attach to your self-worth, and trying to reframe that and work through it.
Totally. That makes perfect sense to me. And actually that makes perfect sense to a lot of people that I work with who are also spiritual entrepreneurs. So it all completely fits together.
Oh, I love it. Does that help? Is that everything?
Completely. It's been really helpful, really interesting conversation. I'm very interested that it's come all the way from the spiritual side, leveraging the business, talking about connection, all the way through round to money and all the way back round again.
It's the thing, they're all interlinked. It's like the circle of life.
We'll start singing in a minute.
I know, Lion King moment. But I'm really excited to see, the webinar, obviously, when that comes out and things like that. So tell people, where can they find you? Because I know I get a ton of people who are super spiritual. They listen to the podcast, and I'm really grateful for that, because I'm not massively woo. So thank you if you are one. But where can they find you if they want to come and talk about visibility and marketing and bringing in their unique gifts into those areas?
Well, I built everything at the moment. I built all of my communities in my Facebook group. So my Facebook group's called Radiant Leaders. I do have a Facebook business page, which is The Bigger Picture Coach, if you want to find me there. My website is karenramsaysmith.wordpress.com, and I'm on Instagram, The Bigger Picture Coach, if you want to find me there.
So there you go, loves. If you are interested in spirituality, in spiritual-based marketing, messaging, visibility, make sure you go and check Karen out. Genuinely, she is one of the most heart-centered, authentic, buzzword people that I know, but you must go and check her out. And obviously, I will be back on Monday with another episode, so I'll see you then.